There are human values that are common to all of us, regardless of our identity. Human identity, self-esteem, dignity, and honor. There are people who risk their lives to preserve these values, like Reyhane Jabbari. A person who risks death to protect human values is a great person. Reyhane Jabbari was born in Tehran in 1988 and was executed for defending her honor after being found guilty of killing Murtaza Abdullali Sarbandi in Iran. Former Iranian intelligence officer Murtaza Abdullali Sarbandi met interior designer Jabbari in a cafe in 2007 and convinced her to visit his office to discuss a business deal. Sarbandi allegedly tried to rape her while she was in the office. Reyhane took a pocket knife and stabbed her, then fled the scene and allowed her to bleed to death. Ahmed Shahid, the United Nations human rights rapporteur in Iran, said that Jabbari was hired by Sarbandi to redesign his office and took her to an apartment where he sexually abused her. While Jabbari admitted to buying the knife 2 days before the murder, Sarbandi's family insisted that the murder was premeditated. However, after he was tortured and interrogators threatened to harm his sister, police allegedly forced him to give a false confession. Several international human rights groups have repeatedly called for a new trial, citing strong concerns about corruption and the repeated mishandling of the case by Iranian authorities. Following his arrest, Jabbari was held in solitary confinement for 2 months without access to his family or a lawyer. In 2009, he was sentenced to death by a Tehran court. In court, the judge asked Reyhane why he committed the murder. The prisoner replied to protect his honor. When the judge asked if that was a valid reason, Reyhane replied that Jabbari was dishonorable and would not understand. Amnesty International, the United Nations, and the European Union lobbied for his life to be spared. His sentence was postponed from April 2014 after a global campaign to halt his execution collected 20,000 signatures. On September 29, 2014, it was announced that his execution was imminent. On October 1, 2014, it was reported that plans to execute her had been halted for the time being. Social media campaigns were launched to stop her execution. Under Iranian law, once the victim's guilt has been proven and the claim of self-defense has been disproved, only the victim's family has the right to stop the execution. Despite the prosecutor's efforts, the victim's family insisted on continuing the execution. Reyhane Jabbari was hanged on October 25, 2014, in Gohardasht prison, north of Karaj. An unsourced article, which did not provide any actual evidence, said that Reyhane left a final recorded message for her mother, begging her to ensure that her organs were donated anonymously. The last letter written by Reyhane Jabbari to his mother. My mother, who is more precious than my life. I never want my young body to rot under the ground. I don't want my young eyes and heart to turn into soil. I will have a request from you in the last moments of my life. Go to court and try to prevent my body from being buried under the ground by legal means. I have healthy eyes, heart, kidneys, and lungs. Why should these young parts of me be buried and rot under the ground? There are sick people in this world who need them. After I am executed, I want my body parts to be donated to those in need. I have only one wish. I don't want my name written on my body parts. I don't want the person who uses my body parts to be grateful to me for the rest of their lives. I don't want them to recite a Fatiha for me, or to buy a rose and come to my grave. Amnesty International said Jabbari was convicted following a flawed investigation, and that allegations that another person in the house killed Sarbandi were not properly investigated. A letter reportedly written to Reyhane Jabbari's mother, which was executed, says these things. Dear L. Today I learned that getting to know each other in short is what I want. I feel sorry for not learning from you that I have reached the last page of my book of life. You didn't think I needed to know? What? If you know how sorry I am, why didn't you give me the opportunity to kiss your and my father's hands? The world gave me 19 years to live. I should have died on that fateful night. My body should be thrown in a corner of the city and the police would wait for a few days. He should have brought you into the office to determine who I am. You should have learned from the judge that I was subjected to rape there. Participation would never be possible because we did not have their power and wealth. You would continue your life with shame and torment, and after a few years this shame would kill you. Anyway, this was the cursed story. My body was not thrown into a corner, but the relief of the house and its little things was pressed into his cell. Now, good news to Ray, who caresses the graveyard. I'm sorry, no complaints. You know very well that death is not the end of life. When you came to school with us, you learned that we treat ourselves like a lady during the time of bedding. Do you remember how you explained to us many times how we should act? Your experiences were false. What I learned when that accident happened did not resonate with me. They presented me in court as a cold-blooded and cruel murderer. I never cried. I never begged. I didn't cry because I believed in the laws.